Hello everyone, we are on the public test server for Star Wars The Old Republic, and we are checking out the Sith Warrior, which was recently released on the test server. The Jedi Knight, its mirror class, has already been on the test server for a while, so they don't need quite as much feedback, and players have already given a lot of feedback about the abilities. Basically, the developers took the feedback and the abilities from the Jedi Knight and copied them over to the Sith Warrior. So here we're going to be checking out specifically the Sith Juggernaut, and its 3 disciplines, the tank and the 2 damage specs. So one important thing to know about these new trees where you make choices. These trees do not include the baseline Sith Juggernaut abilities. They will only include things that are a choice that you can choose between, or things that are directly a part of your discipline and aren't a part of the Sith Juggernaut base class. If you want to give your feedback about these, you can visit the SWTOR.com forums where you can learn how to either download the public test server, all subscribers have access to this, and give your feedback on the forums, or you can just give your feedback on the forums, but make sure to post that you didn't actually test it yourself and you just got your information from online. It's always better to actually be able to test it yourself so you can say how it feels, not just how the data looks on screen. So I'm going to start off with the tank, and I'm going to give the most detail there and less details about the damage specs because a lot is actually carried over. However, there is one big difference for the tank at level 70 compared to the damage specs. Alright, here we go. So for the Immortal tank, the tank class of the Sith Juggernaut, there is at level 10 Aegis Assault and Threatening Rage, and both of these you just get automatically, much like you did before. But at level 15, you get to choose one new passive ability that affects Aegis Assault in some way. So your first option is going to be through Strength. Aegis Assault increases your damage reduction by an additional 2% when it deals damage. The second option is Targeted Assault. Aegis Assault deals 20% more damage to taunted targets. And your last option is SWTOR Strike. Increases the damage, critical hit chance, and threat of Aegis Assault by 20%. Next up, at level 20, you'll have another choice. The first choice is the option to have Sweeping Slash at all. So that normally was just an ability you had. Now it's something you would have to choose at level 20. So Sweeping Slash slashes up to 8 enemies within 5 meters in front of you for damage, and inflicts the target with trauma, which reduces the healing received from all sources by 20% for 6 seconds. Next up is Overwhelming Slashes. Ravage immobilizes the target for 3 seconds and generates 1 focused. And the last option at level 20 is Force Scream does damage to additional enemies in a cone in front and slows them by 50% for 6 seconds. So at level 25, you would just pick up Crushing Blow, much like you did before. And at level 30, you'll be able to choose one option that affects Crushing Blow in some way. The first option is Crushing Rage. Dealing damage with Crushing Blow while Aegis Assault is active grants a barrier of protection to all allies within 10 meters for 6 seconds. Next up, Critical Blow. Crushing Blow critical chance and threat generated is increased by 20%, and its cooldown is reduced by 1 second each time it critically hits. And last option is Crushing Mark. Crushing Blow deals 50% more damage to taunted targets. I see a couple of people who are watching this live asking, is there going to be taunts? Well, I think that shows, don't worry, you'll have your taunts. Some of the stuff on the side here is also included, I'm not reading off. And also the actual ability list here, I'm not taking a look at in this video. So next up, at level 35, you'll have another option. So the first option is War Machine. Critically hitting with a direct attack reduces the cooldown of your Threatening Rage by 1 second. Threatening Rage purges movement impairing effects. Second is Critical Blow. Crushing Blow critical chance and threat generated is increased by 20%, and its cooldown is reduced by 1 second each time it critically hits. And lastly, did I read the wrong one? Yeah, I did, I'm sorry. The second option at 35 is Marked for Death. Dealing direct damage to a taunted target generates 1 rage. This effect can occur once every second. And lastly, Reckoning. Intercede grants Reckoning, increasing the damage dealt by your next melee ability by 20%. This effect lasts for 10 seconds, additionally reduces the cooldown of Intercede by 5 seconds, and reduces the threat and damage taken by an additional 10% each for the friendly target of Intercede. So a lot of interesting stuff that interacts with taunting and not taunting and stuff like that. So level 40, Backhand, is something you will just automatically get. Level 50, you've got a choice. And this choice is actually the same across all 3 disciplines now. So the first option is Extending Roar. Increases the range of Force Scream to 30 meters, but Force Scream deals reduced damage beyond 10 meters. Additionally, Force Push deals 20% more damage and grants Extending Roar, allowing your next Force Scream to deal full damage regardless of the distance from the target. Next up is Warmonger. Getting attacked reduces the active cooldown of Force Charge by 1 second. This effect cannot occur more than once every 1.5 seconds. And lastly, at level 50, Unyielding. You generate 4 rage when stunned, immobilized, put to sleep, or knocked around. At level 55, you'll get Invincible. Big shield, you would get this normally anyway. At level 60, however, you have to make a choice. And you've got a choice between 3 passives. The first is War Master. Force Charge grants Unstoppable, granting immunity to movement impairing effects and effects that push or pull you around for 4 seconds. In addition, Force Charge enables your next Vicious Throw or Hew to be used against a target with any percentage of health. So next up, Hardened Defense. For Vengeance and Rage, all area effect damage is reduced by 60% for 15 seconds after Threatened Scream is activated. For Immortal, all damage is reduced by 30% when stunned. So in this case, you get the 30% while stunned reduction as an Immortal tank. And lastly, Payback. Reduces the cooldown of Unleash by 30 seconds and causes Unleash to heal you for 10% of your maximum health when used. The level 70 is quite a difficult choice, and this one is different for tanks than it is for the DPS classes. So the tank for the Juggernaut has 3 choices to choose from at level 70. The first is Saber Reflect. Reflects all direct single target ranged force and tech attacks back at the attacker for 5 seconds. That's your first choice. Your second option is Intimidating Roar. Paralyzes up to 8 nearby enemies in fear, preventing all actions for 6 seconds. And then lastly, Mad Dash is your third option. So those are the big 3 that you're going to have to choose between, and you only get one. So you get your Saber Reflect, or your multi-enemy stun, or your movement Mad Dash ability. That gives you 100% defense while you use it. So that's the big choice for the Juggernaut. And it's different for the damage classes. And lastly, at level 80, you've got an option of 3. Your first is Pooled Hatred. Whenever your movement is impaired, you gain a 10% damage bonus to your next ability that consumes rage. This effect can stack up to 5 times and lasts 15 seconds. Your second option is Crushing Fist for the... so there's different options. So for the Immortal discipline, Smash slows the target it damages by 60% for 10 seconds. And it's different for the damage ones. And lastly, Through Passion. Reduces the cooldown of Enraged Defense by 30 seconds. So that's the tank class. And now we'll go check out the other 2 disciplines. We'll go check out Vengeance first. So, at level 10, you'll just have Shatter and Blood Rage straight from the get-go like you would before. And at level 15, you get a new type of choice of passives that affects Shatter. So the first option is Deep Cuts. While Shatter is on a target, the crit chance of all your bleed attacks on that target is increased by 10%. Second option is Major Fracture. Increases initial damage of Shatter and reduces its cooldown by 2 seconds. And lastly, choice is Branding Burst. Killing a target with direct burn damage while affected by plasma brand causes it to explode, hitting nearby targets. So at level 20, you've got another choice. Much like the other disciplines, you'll have to pick Sweeping Slash if you want it. At level 20, that hits 8 enemies within 5 meters. The other option is Overwhelming Slashes. Ravage immobilizes the target for 3 seconds and generates 1 focus. And the last option is Projected Scream. Force Scream does damage to additional enemies in a cone in front and slows them by 50% for 6 seconds. At 25, you'll pick up Impale, much like you would before. At level 30, you'll get to pick between 3 abilities that affect Impale in some way. So the first is Bleeding Pommel. Impale deals 10% additional damage and generates 1 rage for each of your periodic bleed effects on the target it hits. Second option is Bleeding Offense. Impale does additional critical bleed damage when it hits and impales. Critical hit chance is increased by 20%. And lastly, Force Skewer, and it has a mark that says it's in development right now. Increases the range of Impale by 6 meters. Impale now immobilizes the target for 3 seconds. And the note from the developers is temporary. It's working, but no new animation or virtual effects yet. So it's working if you test it on the test server, but you can't see it visually. At level 35, you'll get another choice. So your first choice is Intimidating Roar. Paralyzes up to 8 nearby enemies in fear, preventing all actions for up to 6 seconds. So if you want that stun, you need to pick it up at level 35. The other options apart from the stun at 35 are Bloodbound. Critically hitting with the bleed effect reduces the cooldown of your blood rage by 1 second. Blood rage purges movement impairing effects. And the last option at 35 is Blood Rage no longer generates rage. Instead, activating Blood Rage grants Blood Rights, increases the critical hit chance of all your internal bleed effects by 10%, and generating 1 rage each time you critically hit with an internal bleed effect for 10 seconds. At level 40, you get Hue, just like you would before. At level 50, you get the Extending Roar as an option. You get 3 options. Extending Roar, which makes Force Scream go farther. Warmonger, which reduces the active cooldown of Force Charge. Or Unyielding, where you generate 4 rage when stunned. At level 55, you'd pick up Vengeful Slam, much like you did before. At level 60, you've got that same choice as we talked about earlier, War Master. Force Charge grants Unstoppable, granting immunity to movement impairing effects, and effects that push or pull you around for 4 seconds. In addition, Force Charge enables your next Vicious Throw or Hue to be used against a target with any percentage of health. Second option is Hardened Defense. And this one, since we're on Vengeance, it will say all area effect damage is reduced by 60% for 15 seconds after Threatening Scream is activated. And lastly, Payback. It reduces the cooldown of Unleash by 30 seconds and causes Unleash to heal you for 10% of your maximum health when used. Alright, so level 70 is the difficult choice for our damage juggernauts. So the first option is Saber Reflect. That major defensive ability that reflects all direct single target ranged force and tech attacks back at the attacker for 5 seconds. The second option at level 70, you only get to choose one. The second option is Endure Pain. Temporarily increases your maximum health by 30% and damage reduction by 15% for 10 seconds and removes all cleansable effects. When the effect ends, the health is lost. And lastly, Mad Dash, your movement ability that also increases your defense chance by 100% while dashing. So our damage-based juggernauts are going to need to pick between Saber Reflect, Endure Pain, and your Mad Dash. And that goes the same for Rage as well. And at level 80, you'll choose between Pooled Hatred. Whenever your movement is impaired, you gain a 10% damage boost to your next ability that consumes Rage. This effect can stack up to 5 times and last 15 seconds. The second option is Crushing Fist. And this is different for the tank as it is for the damage. So for Vengeance and Rage disciplines, Smash and Vengeful Slam sunder the targets they damage for 45 seconds. Sundered targets have their armor rating decreased by 20%. And lastly, the third option for level 80 is Through Passion. Reduces the cooldown of Enraged Defense by 30 seconds. Now lastly, we're going to go check out Rage. So Rage, you'll pick up Raging Burst at level 10, much like you would before. And at level 15, you get to choose between 3 options that will change Raging Burst in some way. The first option is Dark Synergy. Dealing damage with Raging Burst or Smash increases your critical hit chance by 20% for... the tooltip doesn't say how long. Subjugate is the second option. Raging Burst unleashes a burst of energy around the primary target, dealing damage to nearby enemies. And lastly, Unrelenting Rage. Raging Burst deals 15% more damage and applies trauma to targets. Trauma reduces the healing received by 20% for... and the tooltip doesn't finish. There's going to be some typos and stuff in here. This is just a testing mode. They'll clean it, all that kind of stuff up before it goes live. At level 20, you get to choose between 3 more options. So the first option at level 20 is Sweeping Slash. So if you want Sweeping Slash, which hits up to 8 enemies within 5 meters in front of you, you need to choose it at level 20. You don't get it automatically. The second option is Overwhelming Slashes. Ravage immobilizes the target for 3 seconds and generates 1 focus. And lastly, Projected Scream. Force Scream does damage to additional enemies in a cone in front and slows them by 50% for 6 seconds. At level 25, you'll get Obliterate, much like you would before. And at level 30, you'll get an ability that affects Obliterate in some way. So the first option is Rage Engine. You get to choose between these 3. Rage Engine, activating Obliterate reduces the cooldown of Enrage by 5 seconds. The second option is Seething Defense. Activating Obliterate puts a mini ward on yourself, which absorbs it absorbs damage. Lasts up to 10 seconds, so a defensive option. And lastly, Obliteration. Killing an enemy within 3 seconds of dealing damage with Obliterate resets the cooldown of Obliterate and increases its damage by 50%. So at level 35, you get another choice of 3 options. The first option is Domination. Critically hitting with a force-based kinetic or energy attack reduces the cooldown of your Enrage by 1 second. Enrage purges movement impairing effects and triggers Dominate. Second option is Indignant Rumination. Each time you deal damage with a force-based kinetic or energy attack, you generate 1 focus. And lastly, Intimidating Roar, which is now a choice. It's not automatic. This is an ability you click, you actually use. Intimidating Roar. Paralyzes up to 8 nearby enemies in fear, preventing all action for up to 6 seconds. Damage ends the effect prematurely. At level 40, you'll pick up Force Crush. Crush, much like you did before. I've got to crush on you. Okay. Level 50, you pick up Extending Roar, or Warmonger, or Unyielding, much like the other classes. So Extending Roar is the one that makes your Force Scream go a lot further. Warmonger is reduces the active cooldown of Force Charge by 1 second every time you're attacked. And Unyielding generates 4 rage when stunned. At level 55, you'll pick up Furious Strike, much like you would before. But at level 60, you have to make one of the bigger choices. So War Master is the first option. Force Charge grants Unstoppable, granting immunity to movement impairing effects and effects that push or pull you around for 4 seconds. In addition, Force Charge enables your next Vicious Throw or Hew to be used against a target with any percentage of health. Second option is Hardened Defense. For Vengeance and Rage, and we're in Rage right now, all area effect damage is reduced by 60% for 15 seconds after Threatening Scream is activated. And the last option at level 60 is Payback. Reduces the cooldown of Unleash by 30 seconds and causes Unleash to heal you for 10% of your maximum health when used. At level 70, you get to make that really hard choice. So your first option is Saber Reflect, which reflects all direct single target ranged force and tech attacks back to the attacker. Or Endure Pain, temporarily increases your maximum health by 30% for 10 seconds and removes all cleansable effects. When the effect ends, the health is lost. And that's Is it the same? Oh, it's not. Is that a bug or is it on purpose? So the Vengeance one, the Vengeance version increases your maximum health by 30% and damage reduction by 15% for 10 seconds and removes cleansable effects. Rage, however, only increases your maximum health by 30% for 10 seconds and removes all cleansable effects. So you don't get the extra bonus of the damage reduction that Vengeance gets. Okay, well, I don't know if that affects your decision. And then lastly, Mad Dash is your third option. And then, okay, lastly at level 80. Oh, apparently that wasn't a surprising thing, sorry. I just don't play Juggernaut very much. Okay, Pooled Hatred is your first option for level 80. Whenever your movement is impaired, you gain a 10% damage bonus to your next ability that consumes rage. This effect can stack up to 5 times and last 15 seconds. Your second option at level 80 is Crushing Fist. For the Immortal discipline, it'll do one thing. And then for Rage, which we're on, Smash and Vengeful Slam sunder the targets they damage for 45 seconds. Sundered targets have their armor rating decreased by 20%. And lastly, Through Passion, reduces the cooldown of Enraged defense by 30 seconds. And there's your trees for Immortal, Vengeance, and Rage. I see a couple people asking about Endure Pain for the Immortal tank. And as far as we can tell, you're just going to get Endure Pain. Yeah, it's already automatically part of your tree. You don't have to choose it. Your choice is between Saber Reflect, Intimidating Roar, and Mad Dash as a tank, versus Vengeance and Rage don't get it by default. And if they want it, they have to choose it, and they have to choose it instead of getting Saber Reflect or Mad Dash. I hope this video is useful to try and kind of show you what the 3 different disciplines of the Juggernaut might look like in the future. So this is what they're shooting for in 7.0, but right now it's still in the feedback stage. If you want to show your support for these ridiculously long videos, visit Swtorista.com/support. And if you want more Star Wars The Old Republic videos to show up on your YouTube homepage, subscribe to this channel. And of course, if you play the Juggernaut, please go to the SWTOR feedback forums and give them feedback. And especially if you can, log into the test server and test these out. See you guys later.